Sharanya. I'm excited to have you here. You've got an amazing background, Angi Care. I'll ask you about that a little bit more, but what specifically I wanted to bring you on to talk about was the intersection of SEO and product and SEO and marketing. There's like two schools of thought there. You've got a great background in product specifically. I know you probably have takes and experience in the marketing side too. So first, thanks for coming on. And as a context, we'd love to kind of hear more about your background so it informs a little bit of this convo, if that works.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Super excited to be here. And this is a topic I'm really passionate about, and having lived and breathed through it on whether SEO sits in marketing, SEO sits in product, or can it live in a duality of one leg in one world and also the other leg in the other world.
Right.
So before we jump into that, I started my journey at a small startup here at Austin called School Admin, did digital marketing, got intro to it, went to Volusion, which is where I worked as an agent, as an SEO within the agency at Volusion. So we serviced our e-commerce clients, moved in-house from there, led the SEO program for Volusion.com, and then continued that journey and have been in-house for the past 10 plus years.
Nice. Companies like Angi, Care.com, SETailMeNot, some big names.
Yes.
So a lot of great experience there.
A lot of big powerhouses in their own might and in their own industry. SETailMeNot, I think everybody's probably read that article, the SEO dominance of SETailMeNot. Like if you haven't, check it out from like 12, 13 years ago. So I was very excited to join that program. And that was one of the first places where I got to be in the product org. And that was a really interesting intro to think about SEO as a product versus SEO as a channel or in the marketing org. From there, went to Angi and Care, both marketplaces at IAC. And now I'm currently at Boatsetter, early stage startup that is doing boat rentals and on the water experiences.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, what specifically stood out to me when I knew you'd be a great guest for this podcast, but looking at your LinkedIn experience and your title, head of SEO product at Boatsetter, all your history, or at least a good amount of it, has product in that title. Was that a deliberate action where you're like looking for title, like SEOs that have product in it? Did you ask for those titles, some combination of both? Like, I'm curious, how that.
Yeah, the choices I made were deliberate after I worked at SETailMeNot. And this was before SEO product manager was a thing in our industry. Back then, most of the titles were SEO managers or director of SEO. So it was a conscious questions that I had to ask the hiring manager, who do I report into? Which org do I sit in? And is SEO the right fit to be in the product org and the marketing org? An example being, when you're looking at the website and when you think of your website as your product, then I would love for SEO to be in the product org because the website is what the users are coming to, interacting with, and things like that. But when you're using SEO as a marketing channel and you have a separate product that the users go to, download or free sign up, then SEO might be in marketing. So that journey, as I chose companies or brands or products that I wanted to work on, that was something that I would do as part of my research when I am applying, when I'm interviewing with them.
And are those primarily B2C? It sounds like a little more B2C on average when you said SEO is in the product. Of course, there's probably some PLG SEO B2B examples, but is that fair to say? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend to gravitate towards B2C, but I'm sure there are probably B2B examples where SEO is kind of merged into the product-led growth aspect of it, or like growth or conversion rate aspect to it. The principles start to apply, right? Like you want to build really good user experience. You want to give them the users what they're looking for and make it easy for them to use your product. And that's kind of like the principles that SEO and Google is like talking about all the time. Give them helpful content, give them really good user experience, satisfy their intent, so that will help you grow your traffic. That'll help you grow your conversion. So it kind of translates into that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I looked at honing and learning more and more, I didn't realize that I was actually also going into marketplaces, and that seemed to be like a very natural fit between B2C and SEO in product and also marketplaces. So that was not a conscious choice that I went to marketplaces, but now that when I look back, it's like, oh, I've actually started to specialize in marketplaces too.
Nice. That's some good experience for sure. So one of the things that comes top of mind is you're in product. If we go to a little more detailed there, what is the common like place you would sit on an org chart? Like, are you report like, or your recommendation, I guess, based on your history? Like, what would an efficient place? Is it like to the UX manager, product manager, something else? If that makes sense. What?
Yeah. So typically, I'm either reporting to a VP of product or the head of product or a CPO in a company. And I'm more, me and the team of PMs that work with me are responsible for top of the funnel acquisition. So we are focused on acquiring new users to our product. And it kind of, the underlying is that we want to understand how users are coming from search and using those principles to make not only human users like our product, but also Google understand our web experience, and then they can then send those users. So what I have seen is usually sometimes it's platform team that you can be called as a platform team. Based on my research, you can be top of the funnel. You could be part of the growth team if that is something that the company has. But yeah, usually we are sitting in the product management group, and then we have our design partners and we have our engineering counterparts. So then it becomes like the same sort of tripod. The skill set that you start to bring is, yes, you care about user experience, but you also have a basic understanding of SEO. And that's the merger that is starting to like play. And that's why SEO PMs, now I think you're seeing a lot more SEO PM roles at like larger companies with millions of URLs or millions in traffic.
Nice. Well, so you say top funnel there. I would have aligned the idea of product with bottom funnel typically. Like, could you speak to that further?
Yeah, in this scenario, when I say top of the funnel, is like that we are like the first touch point for the user
Okay.
when they come to the product, and they get to go down the funnel within our product and sign up or convert or pay us. So that from a product perspective, we are more top of the funnel.
Gotcha. Even if you land on a category page, that's could technically be described as a top of the funnel.
Their journey.
Right.
They start their journey. Yeah.
Makes sense. Nice. That's interesting. So did you always just find that more, or I guess on another, so I mean, Eli Schwartz, I have it as my last question here, but I think it's worth noting, like, he wrote a great book, Product-Led SEO, on this idea, has seemingly helped popularize this concept. What are your thoughts on just that whole movement? Have you seen, I don't know if that's connected at all to more roles here? It sounds like you're seeing more adoption generally.
Yeah. When I started it, I don't think product-led SEO was a concept. You didn't have a term for it. So thanks to him, like that's a concept that now I think leadership understands, or C-suite understand when you go talk to them. Similar to like growth hacking, right? Like people start to understand the concept a little bit more and why we need the resourcing that we need. He took the ideas and he gave it a name. Like we were all doing it in our own might, in our own little pocket of the company that we were working in, but he gave it a name, he gave it fame, and now people are starting to use it a lot more. So I do use it as an example within my company and say, hey, this is product-led SEO and not marketing-led SEO. And a lot of times you actually might need both of those. It's not to say that only one is needed or the other, but depending on how you're thinking of product and how you are thinking of your channels and how you're thinking about your revenue, that might be where is your revenue coming from? Where is your traffic coming from? So for example, at Angi or at Care, right, we have our product pages. Or like take any e-commerce website or any marketplace. We have our product pages, we have our category pages. Then you also have editorial, and they all have a role to play.
Yeah.
And it's more about what you're targeting and where the user is in their journey in like converting with us or purchasing with us. So somebody might be thinking about, hey, I am looking for, I just got a juice maker. I'm like, what are the best juice makers? And that might be a little bit more on the editorial side because you're reading reviews, you want opinions of people, right?
Right.
And then you might say, okay, now that I know, I want to like now go start to like see real life product reviews sitting there. So you might go into a little bit more bottom of the funnel in your journey and say, okay, I'm ready to buy one. Let me go see who has the best price or who has the best deal, things like that.
Right.
So the idea is both would be working together in sync. But a lot of times we know that like editorial has a much more lower conversion rate for the business, but it has a role to play because it introduces the brand to the user. It takes them down the journey and you're nudging them to say, hey, I saw you read my article about juicers. Now let's go and see here are like 10 juicers for you to go buy if you choose to buy them.
Right. So on a career stand, I like the idea in the current state of affairs of this product-led role. It seems defensible in a world of AI, extremely so, most defensible. I'm curious what your kind of, for the listener, what your day-to-day looks like. Like, could you give us maybe what an average day looks like?
My average day would look something like I'm trying to understand what are users searching for in Google or any of the other search engines. What are their expectations when they search for it? What is Google thinking about this query? And I think a lot of the SEO tools do a really good job of like breaking down informational query versus a transactional versus a commercial query.
Mhm.
And that's again like a funnel system, right? Like information is they're looking for information from you. A transaction is they're likely to buy or they're likely to convert on your website. So really understanding what my users are looking for. So I worked at Care, and I'm looking for nannies. So like nannies near me might be an example of like a query that I care about. So then I'm trying to build out what are the right set of experiences that I want to go get that user and get them to convert and push them down the funnel on my product. So that's the idea. So that's like one. I do spend a decent amount of time in Google Search Console to see how we are doing and where we are doing well and where we are not. And I also spend a lot of time on understanding user research that our UX team typically puts out, whether it is for my part of the product or it's a different part of the product, just to understand that user journey really, really well. What are the questions? What are the challenges?
Okay.
So that's one. And then you build out and then you turn that into tactics and product roadmaps that you go then work with engineering to say, hey, here's something I want to build. Let's see how we can go build it. What are the different ways we can go build it? What can we do quickly? What can we do like iteratively? So that's kind of like the idea. And it depends on the day what I do. And then, definitely looking at metrics, looking at click behavior on my experience, looking at click behavior in the SERP. So lots of like spend time in data and then turning that into like meaningful experiences.
Nice. So if people listening to this, honestly, only until a year or so ago, and like just even seeing your kind of history, I was like, product. I understand it intuitively, but having not been in-house for a little bit, just seeing the context of SEO under product was a relatively new idea to me. Makes complete sense. Super bullish on it. People listening to this that maybe are just like, I'm an SEO manager. I'm an SEO analyst, maybe a hybrid. I don't have a specialization. Like, do you have any suggestions for them from a career path if they want to like get into this type of thing? What would your tips for them be?
They might be doing some of those things already that a product manager in their company might be doing. And I think talking to the product managers within the org would be like a really good starting point to find those synergies, right? Because they are looking at, well, is that headline working, right? Is my H1 really, really good? Hey, are the users scrolling all the way and reading my article? What CTA are they clicking on? Where are they going next? Like, you're already doing some of those things, but now when in a product experience, you're doing it at scale. So think of it as like an experience. It's not just what content to create but it's also about how do we present that content back to the user? How do we present that content back to Google so that both our human user and Google can understand that? So I think like that's that's like a step one. The other thing that I have seen is really, really understanding user experience and finding those synergies between SEO and UX. I think talking to your design partners, whether it's your visual designer or your product designer or UI UX designer, helping understand, hey, what is the state of mind that the user is in? How do it? I think as SEOs, we tend to focus a lot more on Google bot, and that is our main user. And I think, yes, Google bot is coming to our website and they are deciding who to send to us. But in the end, it's the human user who's coming and interacting with your content, interacting with your product page, interacting with your category page. So like that's like a really good step to move into. And in some places, there's a very clear demarcation that, hey, this is a product manager role. And in some places, it's all like a mixed bag. And I've had both the strategy side and the product side report into me. And there are sometimes very clear ways to delineate the responsibilities between the two groups. And sometimes there's a big overlap. And so finding that and say, how can I partner? How can I learn? And the best thing is like, how do you work with engineering? I think like that's like the key part, right? You're working with engineers, you're telling them your requirements, you're telling them what is a problem you're trying to solve, and kind of like coming together as a team and saying, okay, here is a problem I'm trying to solve, here is why, how do we build it? What is the best way? And kind of like also sometimes you have to give them those requirements saying, hey, great design, great idea to build it, but Google can't read it because it's all behind a click. So like that's where you start to show the expertise and find that.
Makes sense. So in the context of this role, would you even define yourself, or maybe it's not, it's also you versus the common role? Like there's a stereotype of a technical SEO.
Yeah.
Like, would you even define yourself? Do you feel, would you say you're technical? You spoke to one level of like being able to speak to developers. That's not necessarily our traditional stereotype of technical SEO. Or you describe yourself more as I don't want to speak for you. Yeah. How would you fit technical fits in?
I will not call myself a technical SEO. I'm good with numbers and I'm good with data. But I also know what some requirements from Google are, like the schema markup or structured data requirements. And I'm enough to be dangerous to know something is wrong, but I'm not dangerous enough to know what exactly is wrong. So sometimes I go to my engineering and say, hey, something is not working. Google is not picking up, but I don't know what's happening here. Can you help me understand? I think we have broken down like technical SEO in our industry, like technical SEO and content SEO, more focused on where you spend your time in. And some of the ways that I've seen that difference is content SEO focuses on keyword research and headlines and on-page optimization, and technical SEO focuses on XML sitemaps and maybe building internal linking modules at scale, or page speed, or maybe some schema markup. But you need both for SEO to be successful. Whether it's for a content page that has like editorial content, or whether the page that has like list of products that you want to like, you need both. So I think having a really good understanding of how these things start to work and what will make a page successful is really good. There's also like on page and off page, and you would be surprised how many times I still hear, hey, put keywords on the page and you're good to go. And I'm like, I wish my job would be so much easier if that was all I had to do. And I think helping educate how Google has changed and evolved over the years, how sophisticated it has become, and how it's not always just what we do, but also depends on what competitors do and how things are getting measured. I think like having to like share that and being able to make it into a strategy and then turn it into a list of series of action items. I think like that's what is needed. And whether some might be like technical things that are like very back end oriented that we are doing, and some might be more like user facing.
Right.
So I think like that's the technical term is more around it's back end, user can't see it, and it's all like you work with engineers, right? So that's I think we have to break down. We have evolved as an industry and are doing some phenomenal things, and facing some new challenges.
For sure.
But I think in terms of like the titles and in terms of how we define it, it's still like a little bit in like maybe 10 years ago. And I was like, no, we need to catch up there. Which is one of the reasons, like going back to the product, like SEO is like one of the, it's the more modern version. Like you're going towards how people are thinking about it, what people understand, and also how people who are not SEOs can understand SEO.
Right. Agreed. And I want to, so on that idea of that, like, this is a newer thing, we need to catch up. I imagine there's a good wealth of organizations, I could be totally wrong, that are marketplaces even where SEO is sitting in marketing.
Yes.
And I'm curious, have you ever started in marketing and shifted a product and made an argument for that? And or for the SEO that currently sits in that, how can they make an argument for the shift into product? Yeah. Any thoughts on that idea?
I can speak from my interview experience a little bit there. I have seen orgs where SEO is part of like a standalone org called Growth and will work with product and marketing and it has its own like resources. I've interviewed with organization where SEO is really big deal, but they sit in marketing, but they have dedicated product teams associated with them, and you work in influencing that roadmap. The easiest way is when SEO is sitting in the product org, because then you are the product team that's prioritizing your own work and you're not being influenced or told to, right?
Right, 100%. Yeah.
That not saying that one or the other is the right way. I think it just depends on the structure. When I started at SEORetailMeNot, I think we were in marketing right before I started, and we had that was like one of the early companies that I knew that moved to product. I didn't know about product. I was in a marketing SEO org before that, but I was always constantly working with product managers and engineers. And then suddenly when I was in the product org, that dynamic was so much easier to work with and so much easier to influence and get something on the roadmap and say, hey, here's why we are doing it. I have been in situations where I go back and forth, and I think it depends on how the business, how the leadership views SEO, and is it a channel, is it a product, right? And how they think about it from like a P&L. And I think I've been in product org and still managed a P&L, similar to like growth. So like the more I think we can frame ourselves as a growth product, I think it's easier for them to understand why we are product and what we are doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense. Interesting. So, I mean, do you think it's feasible to get switched within a company? Like, what would you do to kind of start that process if someone's in marketing and they're just like, I should be in product right now? Show them this podcast, maybe.
Maybe show them this podcast, maybe have me come and talk to them. I don't know. I think start by showing them your day-to-day on who you're working with. Going back to that question, like where do I spend my time? And I spend a lot of my time working with engineers. Right? And I had product managers report into me, and we were building out our roadmap of what we are doing, whether it's technical SEO initiatives, whether it is conversion rate optimization initiatives, or building new features for our product, right? Like, so things like that. So show them where you're spending a lot of your time on and saying, hey, they might not, you might be working with a PM who might have 5 other teams that they are supporting, and SEO happens to be one of them. Or you might be in a situation where you have a dedicated team. Then you start to go to those stand-ups and start to attend how they are thinking about solving the problem, right? Because you're telling them what the problem is and why you should be solving it and how this can help grow our SEO. But now you're working with people who are actually solving the problem, how. So then you start to say, hey, listen, I'm spending a lot of time not only telling what problems to solve, but also how. And that might be a way to convince leadership to say, hey, SEO might be a good team to sit in product. And that could be a start of it. And say, hey, I'll still be part of marketing and I'll still like participate in how our channel is performing. But one of the things I've learned is in marketing, when you're thinking about channels, ROAS is like a hot topic. What's your cost for acquisition? And we are that one channel that does not have ROAS because we are not thinking about spend. So you start to feel a little bit out of the place and say, but I'm not spending anything. And also I'm also a long-term channel and I'm building the foundations today. So I think there is no right place to start. You also might find a leader who understands, who's done it before, can
Might
be
be the
your
best way to
advocate,
go
right?
somewhere new.
Can be your advocate for that. One of the things you're seeing, this is a little bit sidestep to our conversation, is I'm starting to see a lot of chief growth officer roles, which is a hybrid of CMO and CPO. Like I've actually interviewed with a few chief growth officers,
Oh,
and
interesting.
they manage both the marketing team and the product team. And they're finding those synergies. And SEO is kind of in the same place where you can be in product, but you can still work with marketing. You're always working cross collaboratively. And I jokingly say SEO is never me doing anything. It's telling everybody else to do what to do and why to do it.
Right.
So I am like highly dependent on that. And if you're spending a lot of time working with content creators and the creative team, then SEO might be better fit in marketing because you're working with a different type of team that thinks differently, operates differently. And so you might be better fit in the marketing team. If you're working with engineers on experience and how on interactions, then you might be saying, hey, it might be actually good in product.
Right. Makes sense. So as someone who's thinking about UX a lot, like are there go-to resources you'd recommend, like blogs or anything else for people getting started here?
Yeah. I'm blanking out on the Nielsen Norman, NNG.
That's my favorite.
Right?
NNG Group.
The NNG Group. Yeah.
Great resource.
I really like that.
Yeah.
This is a paid one. I think there's like Good UI.
Okay.
And he runs a lot of experiments between like features, and he'll say add to cart, square versus round. But like there are some that you get actually really good inspirations for, like the first landing page, and say, okay, what do you do here? That's one. And then I usually like actually go and talk to my product and UX UI counterparts and say, hey, what do you read? What do you like to read? So I can start to speak their language. I go talk to my content editors and marketers and say, hey, what do you read? So I can talk to their language. So, and I think like that's the really good skill set an SEO can build, is being able to take what you know and translate it into the words of like how they think about it. And I think that's a good start to like even wherever you are in your career, to like go and say, hey, I really like the content side, so I'm going to start talking like an editor. I learned a term called deck, which I did not know about. And I was like, what's deck? And they're like, that's a publishing world term where it's like the little sub-headline you see after a headline, spelled DEK.
Oh, okay.
And it's a very publishing term. But that's because I started working with content folks who were...
Knew that intuitively.
Yeah, who were like publishers who worked in publishing world. And I was like, oh, good to know. And so now I'm like, oh, I love having a deck. And people will like spell it DECK. I'm like, no, not that deck. This is DEK deck. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think of leading with that, or I'm probably pronouncing it letting. Are you familiar with that term? It's like the spacing between words. Or speaking to our designers, I'm like, I got to learn this term to be able to like not just say it's a little cramped in there. Should use their language, and you get things done a little bit faster. It turns out.
What I've also seen is when you help them understand the problem you are trying to solve and put like what is the user thinking or what is the user intent that you're going after, it makes it so much easy, and it's less about SEO and more about users.
Right.
And that is what everybody, like every team, every company is like, hey, I want customers. And they start off as users. They start off as visitors, turn into users, and then turn into like customers. So you start to like think of them as like, hey, I am solving this problem for a human. It could be me who's visiting this website and doing something about it. So what would I want? What is my frame mindset? And you talk to 10 other people, and they might have slightly different variations of their mindset, and you start to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's like so much SEO is just UX these days. Like, I think technical is still important, of course, but as a lot of tools are like solving a lot of technical problems by default in some way. Maybe not default, but it's easier in some ways. And we can keep improving user experience, and that's kind of like the bar that keeps getting pushed up.
Yeah,
it seems like
the best example I can give you there is internal links. Very SEO thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I want links on the page to link to like 10 other pages. You can see how it can be actually done really, really well when you think about what is the user trying to, what would be the next thing that they want to go after, right? So when you use that and say, okay, I'll use the apartments.com example. This is like my current favorite example for that. You're on a page, you're looking at apartments in Austin, and they know that people think about 1-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom apartments, 3-bedroom apartments. They also care, people think about rent in a certain price range. And they give it as internal links,
Yeah.
but it's actually based on how users would think and want to use the website.
Right.
And it serves both purpose. You're building your internal links like a SEO person would want, and you're building next steps and next places to go as a product manager would want or a UX person would want. So think of that synergy and see where the commonalities are. And that's what I'm trying to do every single day is, hey, yes, I can make it very SEO-y, but can I take a step back and say, if I were a user, what would I want? Or I would pose that question to somebody and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. How would you want this to be solved? And you will see some really good products.
Applications, yeah. I think of, we recently changed our best practice to like 6 post-content related links on editorial sections.
Yeah.
As long as they're like hyper curated for that article. And someone, I forget who, but they DM'd me and they showed me a great example from Wirecutter where like on the article, they reference different links, but it's kind of in-depth reviews of different things. But at the end, they kind of rebubble up articles that are referenced in that article.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you actually want to do more deep research, it is a valuable thing to rebubble those up post-content. And that was just like a thoughtful example of your kind of apartments.com example, I thought.
Yeah. Like Airbnb does it. People like, as an SEO, you'll be like, oh, that's an internal link. You'll pick it up.
Right.
But, like,
it's like
but
anchor
it might
text,
be
text.
Somebody like product manager might have said, like they would say, hey, glamping, you are in Austin. Glamping is really popular right now. So here are all the glamping places for you to available, right? But that's also can be used as an internal link. So it's how you show it back to, it's all about presentation back to the user, right? So using that as like a context, like there, we can find those synergies. Like I truly believe that.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, I would have to test this, but I'm very, very certain, I'm guessing you've seen similar of like, if you can actually influence engagement rate, pages of visit, that will actually do, that's when SEO results come, probably more so than just adding 3 links to other pages.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't hurt, but the dwell time is probably a lot more significant over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is you got the user.
Yeah.
Let's try to keep them here.
Yeah.
Like Wikipedia is a great example. Like it's a rabbit hole, right? Like they always joke, like you go to Wikipedia, you'll always visit like 6 pages or more, like minimum, because you keep going and going and reading something or the other. I do. So think of it the same way. It's like, okay, got them here. I gave them what they're looking for, but I'm also giving them all the other options that they can go explore if they choose to, and just keep them on the site, keep them like engaged with your product, keep them engaged with your website, and like say, hey, I know you'll come back and convert because I'm building that trust with you. And you can, and it also can serve, like that's why you have navigation, that's why you have internal links or footer links, right? Just to like show them the breadth of your expertise as a company.
Right. Not just to push your SEO page.
Yeah. That too.
That too. Yeah, maybe both. Ideally both. So you mentioned UX reading resources. Are there any kind of like tools that are non-traditional SEO tools that you'd recommend as well?
Yeah, a lot of heat mapping tools is really helpful to understand where people are clicking on, how far they're scrolling on your website, especially on mobile, right? That's where like a lot of the traffic is coming from. That's where they, so how do you get, where are they going? Are they going far down enough? Are they like finding what they are really, really quickly? So any of the heat mapping tools is a great tool. I do like, we've done some like, in my past roles, done some like user research to like even say, hey, here's the direction we want to go. We want to understand if you're solving the user need by doing this. And one of the cool things, like when we do the UX research, one of the things that, 2 things that I've actually always asked of my UX team when they do those studies is start the journey in Google, so that you really follow the user from there and say, even if it is like as simple as typing nannies near me, right? Like just start there, or apartments near me, or what do you call it, boats to rent near me, right? And then start the journey there. And two, do it on mobile, like test on mobile. I think we tend to sometimes design as desktop. We are spending a lot of time on our laptop, like when we are doing our research, but like do the user research in mobile, because that's where a lot of your users are coming, and see where the drop-off points are, what are they not interacting with. So usertesting.com, or like
I was
any
going to
of
ask about
those,
that.
yeah, any of those tools, moderated or unmoderated studies. Like we've done a lot of that in SEO, because that's a very common product management practice. So you start to adopt some of the things that, you take the best of all the worlds and start to apply that.
Is there like a best practice workflow for like using a tool like user testing? I feel like I've used it before, and I'm like, you should use it. Is it like I'm about to launch a new set of pages, so therefore we probably should deploy this before we're doing wireframing, like just to understand how users, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
We've done both like high fidelity and low fidelity designs, when like very early on, to understand, hey, you are looking for X, you went to Google, you search for it, what are your expectations, what do you want? Even before they get to our experience, we'll ask a series of questions like, what do you want the websites that are ranking here to show you? Like what mindset, like, right? That's like one way. Or we might say, hey, we set the context of this is where you are, and then get them to like go through our experience, whether it's like live in the production experience or a mock-up, and say, does this give you what you're looking for? What do you like? What you not like? And really like raw, unadult feedback is like really helpful. And as you listen to these users who are not you, so you don't have that bias, but you're listening to different perspectives, and you will get some really good insights. And some might validate the problems you already know. Some might give you something new that you didn't consider or hadn't thought of. But it helps you understand, saying, okay, how do I solve this better? What is working, what's not working? And sometimes then you build the feature, you roll it out and test into like, are people clicking into it? Like, are they interacting with it? Like even like we've done like simple tests, like what is our CTA? And you like, hey, what does CTA have to do with SEO? It's like, okay, I got the user, they are in this frame of mind. Do I tell them to search again? Do I tell them to book now? Do I tell them to add to cart? And there's a lot of like research on what is the right time to be like active and push, versus what is the time to be like, be a little bit more less aggressive. And that's one of the reasons add to cart versus buy now is like an interesting CTA test in e-commerce. Is like add to cart doesn't require the commitment you want. But buy now is like, you're like,
add to bag is something I see all the time now.
Yeah, there's a sense of urgency, right? And there's like, there's that.
But it's aggressive at the same time.
Yeah, but like you're putting that pressure on the user, which they might not be ready, and you don't know that yet. There is actually also, when you think about resources, Google has some PDFs of like UX research that they have, and best practices that they have put out for lead gen industry, I think travel industry, and maybe e-commerce and retail, where they have like taken a lot of best examples in UX and like, hey, you should do this. There's like, it's like a PDF. You just have to Google industry. I forgot. Like it's called Google UX Playbook plus industry. That has been some really good source of inspiration too as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's a ton of good stuff. I'm curious if you made me think, is like A/B testing just an active part of your role, or are you not?
Yes. Yes, I forgot. Yes. On a day-to-day, yes. A/B testing is definitely an active part of my role.
Yeah.
And we've run a few different types of A/B testing. You have your typical Crow A/B testing, where you take a page, split the users into two experiences, and say user A gets experience A, user B gets experience B, and see how they are interacting. And then you have your SEO A/B testing, where you take a group of pages, split them into two cohorts, and apply the change or the variant to one set of pages and see how users interact at like the whole page level. And also how Google sees the page,
pages,
right? And see the interesting part with A/B testing with SEO is a lot of times we are more willing to roll out something that is a neutral result versus only just rolling out the ones that are positive results, or we have a clear winner. And we have actually rolled out and saying, hey, this is not hurting the experience. Google doesn't mind that we have introduced a change. Let's roll out and let's iterate on it. I think like in typical crow testing, or when you talk to PMs, traditional PMs who do a lot of this, it's like they want a clear winner and need to be static. And SEO is a little bit maybe more, we know what we know.
We kind of know this is the right thing.
Yeah, we know what we know, and we don't. There are things we don't know also.
What do you think about the third-party tools that do that?
Yeah, I've used them. I like them. I think it allows you to move faster and deploy. Yes, engineering resourcing is still needed, but when you deploy the tool correctly, it enables PMs and UX teams to like start to like test themselves a little bit and even like get the data back. And I think more sophisticated companies who have like really strong SEO programs have built this in-house. So they are like, we know that we need this. They have built
Pinterest comes top of mind.
Yeah, Pinterest comes to top of mind, right? Like they made SEO A/B testing very popular.
Yeah.
Yes. We might not everybody would be there. So sometimes it's easier to use a third-party tool. Sometimes
do you have a recommendation?
I've used Search Pilot, which I really like. I also have played with SEO Clarity, but it's part of like their bigger portfolio of tools. So they have an A/B testing tool that that I have used a little bit and played with, but not at scale. So there's that, and I'm sure there's like a lot more that is probably there in the market.
Nice. Yeah, I hear good things about Search Pilot for sure. Will, who's the founder there, good, smart guy, knows his stuff.
And we got to a point where like when I've used them, we were doing SEO A/B testing, then we were doing crow testing, and we became sophisticated enough in our program where we could do both of them at the same time, which was really, really cool because we could introduce a change and understand the impact to traffic, but also understand the impact to conversion.
Oh, nice.
And see how this will help us not only grow our organic traffic, but also organic conversions revenue. So I think like that sophistication led to like a maturity of our own SEO A/B testing program.
I'm jealous, honestly.
I am. I've been in and out of tools. So when I start somewhere, I'm like, okay, what can I do? But not everybody needs it. Like, right, different companies are at different levels of maturity.
So and page views and the like.
Yeah.
Also.
So you start to like develop. You become very creative on how you can test.
Yeah. I came from prior to Siege, now 12 years ago. I was in house at a mortgage company and we did A/B tests, and I always just thought it was so fun. Like you test a hypothesis, you get to watch how it's going. Were you right? Were you not right? It's just like a super fun part of search.
And it takes your bias out of the picture, right? And that I think is really critical, especially in B2C businesses, where I will definitely always have a bias on what I think a user might want, and you're taking a step back and saying, okay, let the data speak. And customers are finicky, I will say that, but it's also fun to like do things at scale.
Yeah, and you can when you start stacking wins, suddenly people are going to pay attention to your recommendations pretty loudly.
And I think that's the other thing SEOs can start doing, right? Like when you think about growth teams, growth product teams, it's like the rapid iteration of testing and also like wins, right? It's not just about win rate, but it's also like how many tests can you run? How can you learn quickly? How can you iterate faster?
Right.
And there are things in SEO that we can do and learn quickly, and there are things that will take time, and that's part of like who we are as a role, right? So learning inspiration from like what can I start to test really, really quickly? How can I move fast here? And what needs time and effort to go build? So start to like really like thinking like a product manager there will help us also like grow our program.
Nice. Well, this has been great, Sharanya. I'm inspired. I'm going to maybe run some A/B tests on Siege's site just for the sake of it.
Awesome.
But anything we didn't cover, anything like final notes or anything you?
No, this
product
was
marketing?
great. I will say I don't have all the answers. I'm talking from my experience. But I think it's always interesting to hear from other people on what their experiences are. So if you have any,
Should they connect with you on LinkedIn? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn is totally
We'll
working.
link to your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Your growth advisor on the side, but amazing product experience. I'll be following along on the websites you track. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.